Hello, everybody. I'm Diane Blazek. I'm the Executive Director of All America Selections. And today I have a very, very special guest that I am going to let introduce herself because she is the daughter of our founder of All America Selections, Mr. Ray Hastings. So, Trudy, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Trudy Whitmoyer. I'm the daughter of W. Ray Hastings. The W is for William, but he liked to be known as Ray or as W. Ray Hastings. He, father's father, moved from Ohio to Interlaken, Florida, and then up to Atlanta, where he started the Hastings Seed Company. And then, of course, he had three boys. And my father was the eldest of three. Donald was the middle, and Stanley was the youngest. My father got interested in developing the seed trade and improving it. And I guess started with the idea of the All America selections. Of course, I was not aware of any of that and really know nothing about that end of things. But during well, he went to the University of Georgia, then, of course, worked for his father. All three of the boys did. But he realized during the Depression that there just wasn't enough to support all three of the boys. And so then he began seriously developing All America selections because H.G. Hastings, his father, had his catalog printed in the press in Harrisburg. That's how he knew Horace McFarland, who had the printing press and did this for seedsmen all over the United States. And that's why he was friends. Well, J. Horace McFarland was quite a Renaissance man in his own right. Uh, and so he offered my father an office in his printing press building there in Harrisburg. And so my father went up and got things started. Well, I think he had already started it in Atlanta a bit, but then he went up and did that. But then he came back down and to move the family up there. When we lived in Atlanta, we lived at 1293 Fairfield Road in Atlanta. You had asked once about uh, whether he gardened at his various homes. And at that house, it was beautifully landscaped. And my sister remembers a fish pond and tulips. And I remember a swing that I enjoyed in the backyard. The interesting thing was we went back and visited the house several years ago, my sister and myself, and it turns out they still call it the Hastings House. Uh, anyhow, so my father moved all of us to Harrisburg in 1938, and I think he just left the house because it was the middle of the Depression. Obviously, had moved what furniture they wanted already. So we rented a house on Front Street in Harrisburg, 3103, had a wonderful side yard and a grapevine trellis going back to the garage. But we didn't stay there too long. We later moved to a very old house at 4331 North Front Street in Harrisburg, and that overlooked the Susquehanna River. I will wait for questions from you now.
Okay. So, do you recall one of your first memories? As a young girl, I'm not sure that I was that aware of what my dad did, but were you aware of this organization that he had started or what it did? Do you recall that?
I don't know when exactly uh, I did, but by the time we moved to the house further up Front Street in Harrisburg, yes, I can remember uh, uh, putting seeds in the little packets, going around the table in the dining room and getting all the little packets ready to be sent to all the various trial grounds across the United States. And of course, the trial grounds we went to, we visited every summer. That's what we did in the summer, the whole family we went, and that was the beginning of the little cabins that you would stay in and everything. But anyway, it ended up that of course, there were only 49 states at that time, and there were only two states that I'd never been in because we traveled to all the trial grounds, and it was fun. Yes,
Oh my
interesting.
goodness. I can't imagine as a young child you going to these trial gowns and looking at all these plants would have been kind of overwhelming. Do you have any recollection of seeing something very early on that, even as a young girl you were saying, wow, that's a very special flower or vegetable. Do you have any
No,
recollection like that?
I just remember eating the good things. We ate a lot of things in the trial. I mean, corn is delicious right after you've picked it. You can just eat
It
it right away.
it
And
really is.
cherries. I remember in Oregon, oh, the cherries were so delicious, and we filled all of our hats and everything. And yes, I remember eating lots of stuff. But also, Dad made it interesting for my sister and me to stop. We saw all the things that we should see uh, on our trips between the trial grounds. So to make it, interesting for us. And we had a grandmother who lived in California, and we always Santa Monica, and we always visited her.
Right. I love the story that you packed seeds. And would you believe we are still doing it that exact same way in our office? So the seeds come in. We don't use our children. Well, actually, some of us have brought our children in to help pack seeds. So, 95 years later, it's still being done the same way the trials are. So, yeah, I love that.
But it's amazing how many trial grounds you have. I'm flabbergasted to read that.
I think it was started with 10 trial grounds, if my
Okay,
recollection and records are correct.
that
And
sounds right.
right, so it was, I think, 10 flowers and 10 vegetables. I don't know if they were the same. And now we have about 90 different trial sites. So it's expanded a little bit over 95 years.
Well, I didn't realize, I don't know, that it was still going on. That was what was so amazing, that I opened my little local newspaper from Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and there was the article about what were the winning flowers, etc. And oh yeah, 20 plants to watch for this year. And so there I was. And I said, oh my heavens, it's still in existence. And none of us realized. So I quickly called my sister, and we were absolutely amazed to know that it was still going on. And
Well,
really tickled. We knew, he would just be so thrilled to know that it was such a good idea, and good for the growers, the seedsmen, and the people who do all that work to try to develop. In fact, besides just the vegetables, then there was the roses. Of course, father always loved roses, and we always had a big rose garden and everything. But there were All America selections for roses, for gladiolus. There was a lot of them for a while. Now I think that's going away, but
Yeah, I would love to talk to your dad and tell him how we've expanded things over the years. He started it with seed varieties, and being a southern seedsman, that's natural. But now there's products that are vegetatively propagated or done through tissue culture, and so we have separate trials for those. Things like
Oh,
calypso or begonias that are started vegetatively. We've
oh
got
heavens.
yeah, and we've got some new perennial winners. So we started a perennial trial that has to go over 3 winters. So that was another addition that we've done. So yeah, we're taking his good idea and continuing to
And
expand it.
expanding. It's exciting to hear that.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
he would be very, very happy, and I will certainly pass it on to my sister. Thank you. My daughter is the has the nicest garden, and she gardens a lot. Besides, the bees and the chickens and
And
all
your
that stuff.
granddaughter does wild edible.
Oh, that's right. I have a granddaughter who, yes, foraging. I'm sorry, I couldn't think
Okay,
of
yeah.
that word. Okay, she's a wild uh, food forager and leads groups. And it's always, you ask her to do the salad, and she'll go out in the yard and pick the salad, and chop, chop, chop. And we have a delicious salad.
Yes, I
And
bet. So.
so she does all of that. She loves the gardening aspect and has been doing that a lot in the last few years, and particularly does a lot of she does cooking classes besides taking groups and talking in schools, and explaining uh, uh, what about different plants. And
The
then
whole family loves plant identification. We're all doing wildflower identification all the time.
I was going to ask that. It sounds like your dad's genes, what he loved about plants was passed on to everybody in the family.
I think so, yes.
Have you always done a lot of gardening?
Well, until recently, and now I can't kneel anymore, and everything is very difficult, and it's very frustrating. But I make my daughter help me, my son help me, and their spouses help me.
Well, that's good. And their children and their children's children will just keep passing it on, right?
They will keep passing it on, I hope.
Yeah.
Yes, he was a fantastic person and admired by all of his friends and neighbors. Very outgoing, and he wrote beautifully. Besides his script, was it's gorgeous to read, and he always wrote the poems for all of their Christmas cards, and photography. And yes, well, he took all the pictures at the trial grounds. Well, we had thousands of slides, and that my mother had trouble getting rid of all of those when he passed away. But he did all the photography uh, and wrote all of the uh, news, articles for all, and sent that. But both my sister and I were supposedly, tried being his secretaries, but we really weren't any good. What he always did was he had a dictaphone, and you would go to sleep at night, and you were always hearing him dictaphone using the dictaphone, and then he would write all of his letters to whoever he needed letters to, and then he had a gal who transcribed them, and then he would pick them up and sign them and mail them. But I remember that in Harrisburg, but constantly. But that was he did everything by dictaphone, but he did all the writing and the photography, everything.
Probably have one or two of the articles that he wrote because I have one from I think 1934 that appeared in the Better Homes and Gardens. And so that was probably one he wrote, and then they ran it in the publication showcasing some of the first AAS winners.
Interesting. Yes.
Yeah, great
But,
history. I've got pictures of him, in the trial grounds, standing there in his
oh,
formal
yes.
hat and tie, which today when we go visit trial grounds, we're in shorts and t-shirts because it's so hot. But he must have been a real Southern gentleman to be
He
standing in the trial
definitely
grounds
was
like
a
that.
Southern gentleman. Yes, he
Yeah.
was.
What about when he retired? Do you remember about what year he retired? And did he hire a new executive director or that transition, how that went?
See, I don't remember anything about that. And I don't recall him retiring. I don't think.
He just kept at it.
Yes, but I think there was somebody. I'll have to ask my sister if she remembers.
I can't, right off the top of my head, name all of them, but I know that I'm the seventh executive director for All America Selections. Do you remember the name Jim Wilson? He was involved in that Victory Garden show on PBS.
Oh,
And he served as executive director for a little while. In reality, so much of what we're doing now is exactly what your dad put in place. He was quite the visionary and knew how these trials should be run. And so, for the most part, everything's the same.
they still do, yes. He
Mhm.
also spoke very well and he gave lectures around, you know. He would give talks at various places, yeah.